Peace, family. This is James with Pan African Designs, and tonight I want to talk about something that I found interesting in regards to three of our great warrior ancestors, um, Brother Malcolm X, Dr. Khalid Muhammad, and our great brother and warrior Tookie Stanley Williams. These particular brothers all had one thing in common, and that the thing that they had in common is that they all studied and came to a nucleus in regards to our history, and that nucleus surrounded around the information that Dr. Clarke had was able to retrieve in his extensive study of our African history, um, starting from his young childhood. Now, a lot of people don't know who Dr. John Henry Clarke is, and that's one of the purposes of this particular piece is for people to get the standard of what we're gonna try to push forward with our history. We're not going to continue to let other people even speak on African history without having a reference of a teacher or what we would call a master teacher. Dr. John Henry Clarke, Dr. Francis West Wilson, Dr. Joseph Ben Yohanan, Dr. Sheikh Diop, Dr. Theophilo Banga, those particular teachers, Dr. Chancellor Williams, um, Ashwa Kwesi, Dr. Leonard Jeffries, Dr. James Smalls, Dr. Dr. Rickety Amen. I mean, we have a plethora of even living elders that are come directly off the tree of our great elders and ancestors that are still living that I can't even name. But to not go too far into all of the teachers, I just love to do that because that is a great practice to do so that you people can go and look up those names. If you have to record and then rewind to go and look those names up so that you can get a reference of what true Africana studies is about. It is something that was actually created by these particular ancestors and elders that I'm from referencing. And I think that we have a lot of misinformation and people are trying to deviate for either financial purposes or just trying to retain the old ways of the enslaver, those the colonizers that have enslaved our people's minds as well as enslaved us physically. Now, I don't want to go too far off into this without getting directly to the information. I will definitely be narrating this and I will try to stay on task. This is very important to me because I actually went through the same transition, kind of like at the same time. It's kind of shameful that a lot of us have to be in an elder state, and that's one of the things that I want to change. Is that we have to get on task with the history quick. Um, we're definitely globally connected right now. It's no time to waste. So the value in this is that you need to get to the information now so that you can transfer the information to the next generation now. Um, there's no need to be shielding kids with false information as far as history. We need to know the history now because everybody else is becoming historically aware, and the world is changing based on that information. We cannot be reluctant to accept actual history at this point because everybody else is accepting their actual history and they're acting accordingly. A lot of laws are changing. Y'all think that it's a retractorary state, but it's actually them coming in line with their actual nature. Um, and we have to be ready and we have to be move accordingly like now. So with that being said, I want to use this as a call to all the African warriors and African American warriors across the globe. Use these great warriors, especially off in Americas, to give a reference point of truth, what the ancestors that went through and actually came to agreement on. So what I'm saying is these three brothers of great caliber and honor as far as the African American warriors in both in the streets and in academia, came to a conclusion based on Dr. Clarke's works. So what I'm saying is, moving forward, this is going to have to be the standard. It's not going to be any wavering about it, and we're going to have to insert this without any type of acceptance of a no. So with that said, let me go ahead and get into this. Because I don't want to keep things long. I want to keep them tight. I want to make sure that everything is kind of where everybody can get the information. And if y'all have any questions, then y'all can get back with me in the comment, and then I'll try to answer what my thought was on this, that, or the other. So with that said, let me share my screen, and then I'm gonna move forward with probably a closeout piece, and that's gonna be it. So here we go. Give me a second to move over to my actual screen. Now, I want to start out with this because a lot of people don't know that once Malcolm X left the Nation of Islam, or once he was kicked out, however you want to term it, he actually formed his own organization with Dr. John Henrik Clarke. So Dr. Clarke had his ear like during his time with the Nation of Islam. I'm pretty sure he was already working on them, because as a Pan-African, and me knowing this history like I know it, I know anybody that I come into contact with, I'm working on. You know what I'm saying? So I know he was working on Malcolm. And then once that actually, I don't know if that was why Malcolm started doing what he was doing, but at the same time, once Malcolm, once he got either kicked out, or once that they broke up or whatever, that would just gave Malcolm the opportunity to go ahead and go full-fledged into Pan-Africanism. And this is me sharing the documentation with everybody, so it won't be something that it's like I said or anything like that. This is actual documentation. Anybody can look it up. And then I'll follow this up with the actual video where he's denouncing the Nation of Islam and saying that he's actually into Pan-Africanism as well. I'm not going to play that because that's a long video, but I definitely may put the link in the description so that y'all can go back and look at that, because that's one of his last speeches before he was murdered. So with that said, let me go ahead and read this. I will try to read this as quick as possible, and then I'll get into the video. Then we'll go into the next ancestor, which will be Khalid Abdul Muhammad. So excuse me for a second. Excuse me. Okay, so let me read this. This is the Organization of Afro-American Unity. And this is the organization that Malcolm X and Dr. Clarke, as well as a couple of other elders and ancestors, helped start, organize. It says, the Organization of African American Unity, the OAAU, was a Pan-Africanist, and you see this red, black, and green popped up. So they're a Pan-Africanist organization, not a Muslim organization, founded by Malcolm X in 1964. So he had left Islam. There's no crescent moon and red flag there. The OAAU was modeled on the Organizations of African Unity, which the Organization of African Unity, which is in Ethiopia. And it was a conference that they had in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, which had impressed Malcolm X during his visit to Africa in April and May of 1964. The purpose of the OAAU was to fight the human fight for the human rights of African Americans and promote corporations amongst amongst Africans and the people of the African descent in the Americas. Malcolm X announced the establishment of the OAAU at a public meeting, which I'll be showing the video, in New York at the Audubon Ballroom on June 28, 1964. He had written the group's chapter with John Henrik Clarke, Albert Kling, Jesse Gray, and Gloria Robinson, amongst others. in a memo dated July the 2nd, 1964, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover described the neon's OAAU as a threat to the national security of the United States. So guess what you think he did once he did this? So what I want to stop right here for a second and say that our correct history is a direct threat to the national security of the United States. If you give a leader like Malcolm X this particular information to where he can change the mindsets of all of the African people to where they're aware of their history, that is a direct national threat to the United States. So what they're telling you is to keep us historically literate is a valuable thing to do. So Malcolm X, along with John Henrik Clarke, wrote the following into the Organization of African American Unity Basic Unity Program. Restructure. In order to release ourselves from the oppression of our enslavers, then it's absolutely necessary for the African American to restore communications with Africa. So what they're saying is that we need to talk directly and have a direct line with the continent of Africa. The problem with this is the continent of Africa has not gotten unification with themselves. Africa at this particular point, this is written in 1964. Africa is supposed to have been by now, if they were truly independent like we thought we was in 1964, those borders would have been erased and we would have consolidated that whole continent into like the United States of Africa and made each particular country a state, to where that way we would have predominant power over the whole continent, and the Arabs that's up in the top part wouldn't have that much power. But anyway, reorientation. We can learn much. We can learn much about Africa by reading informative books. See, you know this is a curriculum of John Henrik Clarke because he is the one who has read the books that has freed us from historical illiteracy. Dr. Clarke read so many books that he actually went blind, for those that are unaware of him and his works. So education, another thing that I know Dr. Clarke implemented. I will not to denote from Brother Malcolm, but about Brother Malcolm, I believe definitely is the student in this particular situation here. It says education. The Organization of Afro-American Unity will devise original educational methods and procedures which will liberate the minds of our children. We will encourage qualified African Americans to write and publish the textbooks needed to liberate our minds. Educate them, one child educating them, our children at home. So what he's saying, even if they don't educate us correctly in the school system, once we get educated, we're obligated to teach from the house after school, because we have to get an extra education to correct the historical miseducation that we are being provided by sending our children to school. So if we still have to send them to school so we can go to work, once we get off of work, we got an extra work to do to deprogram them from the misinformation that they're getting in school about the history, at least. And then mathematics, we already know mathematical science and all of the seven classes that they teach are African-based. So we just have to teach everything from an African-centered perspective, and that'll make our people stronger, and we'll be able to teach it, free ourselves. But anyway, number 4, economic security. After the Emancipation Proclamation, it was realized that the Afro-American Constitution, the largest homogeneous ethnic group with a common origins and common group experience in the United States, and if allowed to exercise economic or political freedom, would within a short period of time own this country. We must establish a technician bank. We must do this so that the newly independent nations of Africa can turn to us who are their brothers for the technicians they will need now in the future. The OAAU pushed for the black control of every aspect of African of the black community. At the founding rally, Malcolm X stated that the organization's principal concern was the human rights of blacks, but that it would also focus on voting registration, school boycotts, rent strikes, housing rehabilitation, and social programs for addicts, unwed mothers, and troubled children. Malcolm X saw the OAAU, as a way of unbrainwashing black people, ridding them of the lies they had been told about themselves and their culture. So their whole mission was to re-educate us historically, because they felt that that was the first thing that we have to do is figure out historically. And I definitely agree. It cannot be a war talking about guns and stuff like that when we were historically confused and still fighting each other. We have to consolidate around one history, and the one history is the history that that our great historians have found. Not saying that Dr. Clarke is a scientist, but he was the greatest historic. He was one of the greatest historians that we have. Him, along with his colleague, Dr. Ben, check out the D.I. Francis Chris Wesson, etc. So we already know this. We have to stay with the foundation. We have to champion the true history of our ancestors, because we see that we have a lot of for some reason, we have a lot of people deviating and trying to set a false narrative, and we can't allow that. So let me read these last few paragraphs, and then I'm going to go into the next great ancestor, which will be Khalid Abdul Muhammad. So it says, so what did I let me read this last part. It says some unbrainwashing, I'll be reading them. It says on July 17, 1964, Malcolm X was welcomed to the second meeting of the Organization of the African Unity in Cairo as a representative of the OAAU. See, now we getting together. They can't have that. When a reporter asked whether white people could join the OAAU, Malcolm X said definitely not. He added, if John Brown were still alive, we might accept him. See what I'm saying? So that's a cold quote from the great ancestor. So I'm gonna close that out, man. Maybe I wonder, do I need to read this? This is Malcolm X did not have significant time to invest in the OAAU to help it flourish. After his death, Malcolm X half sister Ella Little Collins took over the leadership of the OAAU, but dwindling membership and Malcolm X's absence eventually led to the collapse of the organization. So as you can see, you kill the head and the body will die. So much love to our great Pan-African warrior and ancestor, Malcolm X, better known as El Haj Shabazz. I think that's how you pronounce his real Muslim name. But he was the great brother, and before he left this planet, he was the Pan African, and that's the best, and that's the best way for us to go as a people. So let me share this clip of that particular the intro at least. I'll share, maybe it's a couple of minutes. I'll share that, and then I'll get back on the mic, and then we'll go to Khalid Muhammad. So hold on, peace.
Mr. Moderator, our distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, our friends and our enemies. As many of you know, last March, when it was announced that I was no longer in the Black Muslim movement, it was pointed out that it was my intention to work among the 22 million non-Muslim Afro-Americans and to try and form some type of organization or create a situation where the young people, our young people, the students and others, could study the problems of our people for a period of time and then come up with a new analysis and give us some new ideas and some new suggestions as to how to approach a problem that too many other people have been playing around with for too long. And that we would have some kind of meeting and determine at a later date whether to form a black nationalist party or a black nationalist army. There have been many of our people across the country from all walks of life who have taken it upon themselves to try and pool their ideas and to come up with some kind of solution to the problem that confronts all of our people. And tonight we are here to try and get an understanding of what it is they've come up with. Also, recently, when I was blessed to make a trip or a pilgrimage, a religious pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca, where I met many people from all over the world, plus spent many weeks in Africa, trying to broaden my own scope and get more of an open mind to look at the problem as it actually is. One of the things that I realized, and I realized this even before going over there, was that our African brothers have gained their independence faster than you and I here in America have. They've also gained recognition and respect as human beings much faster than you and I. Just 10 years ago on the African continent, our people were colonized. They were suffering all forms of colonization, oppression, exploitation, degradation, humiliation, discrimination, and every other kind of thing. And in a short time, they have gained more independence, more recognition, more respect as human beings than you and I have. And you and I live in a country which is supposed to be the citadel of education, freedom, justice, democracy, and all of those other pretty sounding words. So it was our intention to try and find out what was our African brothers doing to get results, so that you and I could study what they had done and perhaps gain from that study or benefit from their experiences. And my traveling over there was designed to help to find out how. One of the first things that the independent African nations did was to form an organization called the Organization of African Unity. This organization of Afro-American Unity.
Y'all see it skip, huh?
Objective, to fight whoever gets in our way.
But yeah, that's the gist of it. He was a Pan-African. He was coming into his own as a Pan-African under Dr. Clarke and probably Dr. Ben and others' leadership, and then they murdered the brother. Soon as he found out his true history, it was too dangerous because they knew that he was going to lead them to the information that Dr. Clarke had led him to. So that was the piece that I wanted to show to validate that the brother had moved on to Pan-Africanism fully, even though he might have been named Malcolm X or whatever. He was only around a couple of years before he was murdered. So let me move on to the next great ancestor, which is Dr. Khalid Muhammad. And this is actually his last speech before he was murdered. And that or died up under suspicious circumstances, which we all know what that is. But this is our brother in full Pan-African mode, full Pan-African attire, colors, and speaking like a true Pan-African. When you listen to what he's saying, because I actually had to have this marked the time that we need to listen to it, and I'm not going to make this because I'm not trying to make this long. You'll hear him speak of who he is actually studying up under right now. And then he's consolidating around the history of Pan-Africanism. So let me play this clip, and then we're going to move on to Tookie, and then I'll close out.
Give the Lord praise, but have some balance. I have found since my days with the Nation of Islam and no longer being in the mosque, that I now draw from all of our spiritual expressions. And that I now have come to, as many of you have heard me say many times, while I was supreme captain or national spokesman or whatever in the Nation of Islam, that if it were not for Africa, if it were not for the original black man and black woman, there would be no Islam, no Christianity, no Judaism. None of the world's major religions, as Dr. Yosef Ben Yaakov and Dr. John Henrik Clarke and others have taught us, would be in existence if there were no
has taught us
man and woman and no Africa. They sing a song, Kano Bold. We actually paraphrase the Kano Bold hold African spirituality. The bowl of Islam is too shallow to hold African spirituality.
That's right.
The bowl of Christianity is too shallow. Kano Bold hold African spirituality. The bowl of Yoruba, the Ifa, the Akan, even the bowl of ancient Kemetic teachings and the principles of Maya, truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, order, and reciprocity.
That's right.
One of them being substituted with propriety that speaks to morality. Righteousness speaks to morality. It was not to make mockery of any of those religions when I gave those examples. And it wasn't just to make jokes, but sometimes we put truth, as Brother Bobby does so beautifully, as Brother Phil does, as Brother Henry and others do. You wrap truth in laughter so that it makes it more palatable, makes it easier to get down, and makes it easier to internalize. Let's look at it. I said I'm now coming to the point that I'm realizing that if it were not for the original black man and woman, if it were not for what is called Africa today, there would be no Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, and the so-called world's religions. All of the religious leaders pray in this manner as they end. The Christian says, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. And he goes on, and when he ends this prayer, he says, Amen. What does he say? Amen. The Hebrew, the rabbi.
Listen to him.
When he prays,
I think I'm going to let this roll. I don't know. But this is so powerful.
When he finishes, he says, Amen. What does he say? Amen. The Islamic Imam says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And he goes on, and when he finishes his dua, his salat, some point of the dua, somewhere along the way, he says, Ameen. He says what? Ameen who? Ameen Ra. Amen Ra. All of the world's major religious leaders and those who stand in front of the people to lead them in the prayer service, all of them end in Amen, in the name of the great God of our ancestors. Amen. Amen Ra. The hidden one. The prime moving, creative, regenerative, and prime moving force
the hidden one. I'm in Ra. Huh? You a Muslim? Yes. But I know my roots. I know my roots. I know about Mecca, but I also know about Becca. Huh? I know about the sacred pilgrimage to a holy city called Mecca, but I know that sacred pilgrimages didn't begin until they studied the sacred pilgrimages to the holy city of Abydos in ancient Kemet. Talk back to me. Talk black to me. I know about the creation story in the book of Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And he did this and he did that, and he found that the earth was void, and he separated the sun from that. I know it. I have some knowledge of that, as you do. I know in the Quran it says kun fayakun. Some translated, some said shouldn't be translated be, and it is. That he called be, and it is. But I know about kunu. I know about him sitting at the potter's wheel. I understand patah. I understand Luke, Shu, Get. I understand the universe in that sense. And more, I am being guided to study more.
See?
I understand that through what is called in Kemet, divine authoritative utterance, through divine authoritative utterance, we were able to will it all into existence, set it in motion, and then set it to a balance, and then establish a law by which it would be running from that point on. Understand that. I've been to Mecca 7 times. I don't know what dear brother Malcolm saw. May he rest in peace. I don't know what he saw. I don't know about him coming back and teaching. After he sent the postcards back, here I am in Mecca, and it's a sight to behold. Malcolm sent these postcards back to civil rights leaders, and it's a sight to behold. Here I am, sleeping on the same mat, eating from the same dish, drinking from the same cup, with men whose hair, and praying with men whose hair is the blondest of blonde, did he say it? Whose skin is the whitest of white, did he say it? Whose eyes are the bluest of blue, did he say it? This proves, he said, that this can be done. He said there are men here in Mecca who would be considered white men anywhere in the world, but because they have Islam, Islam has changed it. And I believe that if the white man in America, Malcolm said, could get Islam, that Islam would change the white man. Oh, dear brother Malcolm.
That's
May
right.
you rest in peace. And thank you for the contribution that you made to our onward advancement and toward our upward mobility toward freedom and liberation, freedom and independence and liberation and salvation of the black nation. But I must disagree with you, Malcolm. I don't know what you saw. But I saw racism in Mecca.
That's right.
I saw hatred in Mecca. I'm telling you what I saw. I saw racism and hatred in Mecca so thick until you could cut it with a knife. I saw nasty, white, dirty, camel breath desert Arabs who just got a little oil a few days ago and a few millions and a few billions that don't even belong to them. I read Chancellor Williams. Chancellor Williams in his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, say that those areas change from black to brown to white. And so we take the side with the Palestinian now, but the real land question ain't been raised yet. The real land question ain't with no Palestinian. The real land question ain't with no imposter Jew.
That's
the real
right.
land question is between them together and me and you. It's our goddamn land that they stand on today.
Yeah, but that's the Warrior King, man. I just want to give y'all a little bit of how it was going down, but you could see that you could see that he referenced, the great elders and the great ancestors, and said that he was still learning, and those was his teachers, and the brother didn't get a chance to make a full transition like some of us have, but I'll reference like a brother Infudisi Jehudi Mas as people that actually was stood with these brothers, like Malcolm X. You got Professor James Small. They were all Muslims at the time, but now they fully integrated into the actual teachings of Dr. Clarke and Dr. Ben. They call themselves students of not students of Khalid Muhammad or Malcolm X. They call them like friends. They followed them, but they actually call themselves students of Dr. Clarke and Dr. Ben. That's the honor that those particular teachers, which I call them great ancestors, great elders, and those are my teachers. And even though I've never physically sat at their feet, there's definitely my teachers, and that's the lineage that I claim. A lot of people say if you have never met Dr. Ben or Dr. Clarke, then you don't have any value in the community. But I think that those videos that they have left for us are just like classroom lessons. I've sat 3 hours at a time and listened to Nubia, the Mother of Civilization by Dr. Yosef Ben Yohanan. I've watched that video several times, and that's in a classroom setting. So I would beg to differ that we don't have any lineage to those particular ancestors. I think that we all have a part to play. I think that I have contributed to something that's just as valuable to people that have actually met Dr. Clarke and Dr. Ben. So I just wanted to say that because a lot of people try to kind of stay claim to the ancestors, and I know what that's like. You know what I'm saying? To actually have been there, and I can only imagine actually being able to meet them in person. But I just think that sometimes that's kind of selfish about the people that have met them to try to alienate us from people who got the same love for them, even though we never met them. But anyway, that's my thought on that. But anyway, let's go to the brother Stanley Tookie Williams and for the trifecta, and to show another great warrior that made his transition with being historically aware. Then I'll close out with the value of this. Okay, so this is my post. This is my post on Stanley Tookie Williams on Facebook. This is actually from the Pan African Designs page, but this is his book, Blue Rage, Black Redemption. It's an excellent book. I would advise anybody to pick it up that's into African history or want to know about this brother and his transition into an African, acknowledging his African history and being an African warrior for African people instead of being a degenerate or being a deviant to African people as far as like being destructive. So the Blue Rage represents his historical illiteracy and how you behave when you are unaware of who you are. And the Black Redemption comes when he becomes historically aware and became a powerful spokesperson and a powerful brother as far as like trying to change us to understand the history first before we move outward as warriors and as African people on this planet. So I'm going to read the little snippet from the book on this next click, and this is going to be from him, from his words, personally, himself. So all you street cats that's either Crippin, Bloods, or GDs, folks, Vice Lords, whatever particular street gang that you call yourself having, entertainers, or anybody that may come across this video, I want y'all to definitely pick up this book and start using the names of some of the teachers that are definitely Dr. Clarke and Dr. Ben. And I don't know how I could get to where, if maybe just leave a comment if you need any more. But really, here's a lot of the teachers that's off in this particular paragraph. So y'all can look at this, go back and look at this video. They got the name spelled here, and then y'all can do. This is a good reference for you if you want to become historically aware of African history. These are definitely teachers that you need to know, and you need to have their works, or either go look at their videos and just soak up the information over and over again until you get a reference point or understanding of actually what's going on. So you don't even necessarily have to read for a while until you just keep watching the videos of people that's in this particular paragraph that I'm going to be reading. So let me go ahead and go into that, and then go into this, and then I'm going to close out, and I'm going to lead into this with what the book was saying before it got here, then I'll tell you. So Tookie had wound up getting extradited or having to go back to the county jail for some kind of case that he had, and so they had put him on at the county jail, and then so after they got done with him, they sent him back to I think he went to San Quentin. I don't know where he went, but so he went back to San Quentin. So let me go ahead and read this, and then they housed him with a brother that put him up on the history. So either which way it goes, let me check it out. So it says, robbing back in San Quentin through no delight was better than being in the county jail. In East Block, I was housed a couple of cells from Tretch. Soon he started sending me books by authors such as Chancellor William, who authors The Destruction of Black Civilization, the student of Dr. Ben and Dr. Clarke, Runoko Rashidi, and he's still living, Danita R. Red, Sheikh Diop, a great ancestor who put Dr. Clarke onto a lot of great works. And him and Theophilo Banger did a lot of great works at the Conference of UNESCO. You would have to look up that, look into that. But that's one of the great accomplishments of African people in the 20th century. That's one to make Sheikh Diop one of our greatest scholars of the 20th century, the 21st century. Our great queen and great ancestor, Frances Quest Wilson, who just made her transition recently. Dr. Joseph Ben Johannan, which is one of the greatest scholars of the 21st century as well. Dr. A.J. Rogers, Dr. Ivan Van Sertima, and of course, Dr. John Henrik Clarke, and then he says many others. These writers help reveal the truth about the history of our culture. And the more I read, the more I discovered the contradiction in myself and in the world I thought I knew. So from this point on, the brother changed. So that's another validation from a strong warrior that Dr. John Henrik Clarke had unlocked the code. Not just him, but these are all his colleagues. This is a consensus of our greatest scholars. And I'm glad I ended with this. This is a consensus of some of our greatest scholars as to what we need to. These are names that you definitely need to know and have read or at least looked at YouTube video to gain an understanding. And I think you're definitely going to have to go into doing some reading. You can't do any of this. You can't comprehend a lot of this without going to look up these people, find out what they've accomplished, and looking at their works. A lot of like Dr. John Henrik Clarke, he's on YouTube. Ivan Van Sertima's on YouTube. Frances Quest Wilson's on YouTube. Dr. Joseph Ben Johanna's on YouTube. I think it's a video on Sheikh Diop, Runoko Rashidi, still living. And he's taking people back to Kemet every year. So you can get in touch with him. I think he's still based out of California. Chancellor Williams, I think they may have one video that I think I've seen on him. But there's plenty of videos on Dr. Clarke and Dr. Ben. Frances Quest Wilson didn't have that many. But these two in particular, and Ivan Van Sertima to a degree, I think some of his information needs to be updated. But these two right here are foundational, and especially in him too. But she's expert. Her expertise was dealing with the mental state and how the mind game the Europeans were playing with the words, and how we could overcome those particular traits that they were trying to indoctrinate us with, and recognize the tricks in the trade. So that was a great queen. We have a lot of other great queens and a lot of great ancestors. I'm not just trying to leave anyone out, but we got some people that come off of that tree that's definitely doing good work. So, and be careful of people that are using their information and claiming it as their own. So, with that said, I don't want to make this long. Let me go ahead and come up out of this. Let me stop sharing my screen. I hope this wasn't too long, but I just felt like that was an interesting situation, and I wanted to go in and talk about that. I think that's interesting that after those brothers went through everything that they went through, that they all came to the conclusion that that was the Dr. Clarke's foundation of and Dr. Ben and his colleagues' foundation, which that's the foundation of our history. It's no doubt about it. People that's talking about Aboriginalese type of information, people that are talking about flat Earth information, or even people that's talking about any of the major three Abrahamic religions or trying to push you in that direction, you have to ask them who is their teacher. Now, anybody that's dealing with those particular religions that I just spoke of, their teacher is going to be God. I don't know what to say about that. You know what I'm saying? But as somebody, as an intelligent human, that's trying to advance our people, that's not good enough. God doesn't write books, and I'm not just really gonna have to be adult with this. God doesn't write books; men write books. So we have to understand that as adults, and you have to get into this history, family. We're gonna have to definitely separate the history from the religion. For at least if we could get all of the churches or everybody in church to just take 6 months to review Dr. Clarke and Dr. Ben's work, and just put the history down. I mean, don't pay no tithes. Don't pay any type of things to go to, because like I had said in a post on Facebook, when you put into the church, you put it into the economic machine of your enemy. So, and that's what the 501c3 is about. I don't want to get too far off into that, but let me go ahead and close this video off. Close this video out. It's kind of late here in the, Central Time. It's 4 a.m. I just wanted to do this video real quick. I hope it doesn't stir too many feathers. It's just about keeping in my eye with me. And what I mean by that is keeping it truth, telling the truth about our situation. And I hope I don't outwear my welcome, but I just want to try to bring new aspects to the community. So I may release this video and then I may not, depending on how I feel about it. But I may go into something I want to talk about with the boxers and the fighters and the athletes that's not using their flag, and in particular the boxers that's not coming in the ring with the Pan-African flag, while everybody else is showing their ethnic pride. Why hasn't the Pan-African or why hasn't the African come in the flag with their ethnic pride on their back? Well, anyway, with that said, let me go ahead and get up out of here, family. I'll get back with y'all soon. I may do another video right after this just to try that out. And then I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace and Black Power.